If permitted, Mr. Chair, if NeSe could say a couple words.
Sure. Bonjour, Anini, NeSe Indigenicas Aanishinaabeg Anini, Kevin Richard Shores Indigenicas Anini, Makwanin Dundame, Minawa Nindo Gitchida, Gawababigani Kagan Dunjiba, Minawa, Moorhead, Minnesota Nungumin Day, Chi Miigwich Gitchimanadua, Pegish Bimonteziwe Women. Hello and hi, and thank you for giving me the honor to humbly be before you, our elected council. I would like to start by saying thank you to Simon for driving me here today, and I am sorry for inconveniencing you for this long of a time frame. I please accept my apologies, sir. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Alan Roy. Beyond Terry Tibbetts, in my many years of trying to contact tribal council members, they're the only two that have reached out and spent time with me on the phone discussing this, that, and the other thing of being Anishinaabe. And when I came to Terry Tibbetts' wake or funeral, I have never felt so unwanted as a traditionalist, as much as society will allow me to wear on the equinoxes and the solstice. Excuse me for my ego, but I fast for 7 days. This summer I'll be a 20-year pipe carrier. I was presented an eagle bone whistle by the veterans of this reservation, and when I got to Terry Tibbetts' wake, it was not accessible. I had to go around the building to get inside and be pushed through 6 inches of mud to get inside the building to say farewell to a friend of mine, thus causing major disruption in my home with mud in my home for a week that the people that are subcontracted by the VA, because I'm dying with Gulf War illness because I was an experimental guinea pig, they had to absorb cleaning up that mess, which takes away from my daily living activities. Just being here now, I had to cancel 4 hours of assistance with my daily living activities and a bandage change of a brown recluse bite that I've been fighting for 6 years on my leg, where the VA wants to cut my leg off. So please forgive me for my frustration and my passion of this cannabis, because in 2004, as I've proclaimed many times, I presented almost a 3-hour presentation to the council where I told them within 3 years we would be totally self-sufficient without having to use the money given to us by the federal government or the state government, and use that money strictly for health maintenance of our people, and we would be able to provide economic sustainability for ourselves. In the last 5 years, Colorado alone has made $8 billion in revenue. And this saddens my heart and pains my heart, because I think about all of the overdoses, all of the violence with alcoholism, all of the challenges with the SSRIs and the horrific medications that they're putting our children on. And I feel responsible for those deaths because we are not utilizing cannabis for the benefit of our people. And I am ashamed to be Aanishinaabeg Anini of the White Earth Reservation, because this is unacceptable and it's unconstitutional. We placate to the dominant society and their rules and their laws, where our ancestors have been on Turtle Island for over 120,000 years in Anishinaabe territory. And it breaks my heart, because all of Maslow's hierarchy of food, shelter, and clothing can be fulfilled through the cultivation of cannabis. I promise, by implementing cannabis cultivation, not hemp or marijuana, because then we're just placating to their laws and their rules. But if we stick to the name, as I was proclaiming earlier about calling ourselves Aanishinaabeg, because the lawyer in front of us told us it's all about the language and the words. And we're Aanishinaabeg. And the plant is called cannabis. And I promise you that if you allow us to grow and exercise our inalienable rights as entities, as Anishinaabe on Mother Earth, a key, we can be self-sufficient by the end of this growing season. That if we buy, within the next 2 weeks, if we start putting seed in the ground and not for anything else but for seed, we grow for seed. We have thousands and thousands of acres here on the land to where we can utilize the cultivation of seed. And we come out with our own seed, because we cannot plant anything without asking the lapdogs or the black-booted thugs, please, can we buy seed from you? When we can create our own seeds. I cannot confirm nor deny I have enough seeds to initiate our own cannabis. I know there's people in this room right now that have initiated growing our own strain of cannabis. And if I may give you a brief history about cannabis, it was here before the white man was. The Phoenicians were bringing it up the Mississippi River when they were trading with our people, the Anishinaabe, for copper. We were utilizing cannabis. But the dominant society, the colonists, they called it hemp. And the hemp, and forgive me, I didn't check it well enough, but I have an audio recording of George Washington's writings to his gardener, where he was telling his gardener, do not lose a single India hemp, which is termed cannabis indica. And cannabis indica is known for its utilization when you smoke it. A tree of cannabis that you grew particularly to grow it and smoke it for medicinal, health maintenance purposes, they called it a cherry tree. George Washington got in trouble for cutting down his father's cherry tree because he wanted to hang it up and dry it out so he could smoke the hemp, the cannabis. That is where the story of the cherry tree came from, and him chopping down the cherry tree, because back then a rolled hemp cigarette was called a cherry, because when it glowed, when you indragged, or when you took an intake on it, it was a cherry stick. But the founding fathers were using cannabis, hemp, marijuana. Now let me share with you where marijuana came from. We just got done with the Spanish-American War. We had challenges with the Mexicans. We had challenges with, the dominant society had challenges with the Mexicans, had challenges with the minorities. And they had a challenge with hemp, because hemp was just about to revolutionize the industry, thus putting the petroleum business, the timber business, the paper business, the media business, conglomerates out of business by growing hemp or cannabis. And William Anslinger and William Randolph Hearst and the government needed to demonize the hemp plant. And so they started calling it marijuana, which is from a Spanish derivative, because in Mexico they were devout Catholics. And it was against the law to kill a Christian. And so they stopped conforming the Mexicans into Christianity so they could still kill them according to the law of the Popes Fall. And so the Mexicans, since they were also a matriarchal, and they worshipped and prayed to Mother Mary, Jesus' mother, they also prayed to John the Baptist. because John the Baptist, you needed to be baptized to become a Christian. And so when you would smoke hemp or cannabis, it would give you a euphoria. And from that euphoria, they claimed it was the same as when they got into prayer or meditation and prayed to Mother Mary and John the Baptist. You got that same uplifting when you pray to the Creator, or you pray to the gods, or however you want to call it. But you use the female plant of the hemp or cannabis to utilize in smoking. And John is a masculine word, so they changed it to a feminine word, Juana, marijuana. And so the Mexicans would talk about smoking marijuana is like praying to Mother Mary and John the Baptist. The dominant society used this as a way, the wacky tobacco, la cucaracha, they used this to demonize the hemp plant, and they started claiming that all the minorities were going crazy utilizing marijuana, cannabis, or hemp. And then through the demonization of the plant, they came up with the Marijuana Stamp Tax Act of 1937, and all of these hemp farmers came up to get their new seeds, and they said, you can't grow that anymore, it's marijuana. And they're saying, we've been growing 6-7 generations of hemp, it's hemp. But because of the legalities, and because of the labeling, because it's all in a name, and you can find the government patent is owned on cannabis for its therapeutic particulates, the government owns the patent on it. I'm sure Jake, Jodan can tell you the horticulturalists, the agriculturalists of yesteryear, they have came and already classified years and years before the establishment of Minnesota territory or the White Earth, that cannabis was already here on the land. According to our treaties, we are allowed to utilize every plant that was grown within the continental United States for health maintenance. So by law, we have all the rights in the world to grow cannabis. The biggest challenge is, though, how do we utilize the cultivation of cannabis for the people first and not for individuals? Or other people. That we should all be given the choice to cultivate cannabis because it is not against the law. What I am asking of the tribe, if I could have minimally 1 acre, if I could have 10 acres, it would be beautiful. If I could have, excuse me, forgive me, have pity on me. If not I'm sorry, that's my ego. If we, the Aanishinaabeg, could have the Callaway plot that was so wrongly given to Winona, where we spent over $100,000 in a failed crop, and then it reseeded itself, and then Winona was rewarded with harvesting that, and who got those profits? But if the people could have 10 acres, and I can show you a proposal of how, like I've said before, within 3 years, I literally think we could do it, and I told Alan Roy this, by the end of this growing season, that we could be economically self-sufficient. Because when it comes down to it, as Anishinaabe, no matter where the money comes from, it's the bankers that are holding it. And if we are truly thinking outside the box, we need to establish our own bank, a building with our own bank, with our own guards, and utilizing their fiat fake currency, and start buying our own gold and silver, because the economic collapse is upon us, as the seventh fires prophecies have stated. So if we are not out of time, the Chamook's calendar, we have a crucial planting season to initiate it right now. And if we grow hemp, and if we grow marijuana, we are gonna be destroying cannabis heirloom seeds. And if you guys are gonna squawk about monomen and keeping those heirloom seeds pure, then you guys need to address the cannabis issue too. Because the more hemp that is grown on this reservation, the more it's contrary to our teachings. And I would honor my services in any capacity without payment. Without payment, I don't need money. I get my disability from the VA and from Social Security, so I don't need any money. But if I could just be reimbursed getting here and there, I would be humbled and honored to share over 20 years of sitting and thinking and contemplating, how can I be Aanishinaabeg? Because that's who I am, Aanishinaabeg Anini. How do I help my people? And through all my experiences, cultivating cannabis is the quickest way to do it. So if you have any questions, I could talk for hours. And I have a box here. If you could pass that stuff out. It's an example of cannabis shingles. It's an example of cannabis wood. And it's an example of cannabis concrete. Food, shelter, and clothing. And I also wanted to say that I am also part of a regulatory group, well, not regulatory, sorry. We call ourselves Cannabis a Key. In the last 10 years, I have been giving presentations throughout the reservation about cultivating cannabis, and there's thousands of people, from what I've heard, that want to grow cannabis for their own purposes and their own reasons. And Cannabis a Key, I feel, was somewhat insulted because at the last quarterly, we were acknowledged and we stood up and made ourselves known. And so if this council is really looking for people that are of the people, I would say we're right here in front of you and we're being ignored or being dismissed. But I would like to relinquish any extra time, unless you guys have any questions, to any of those of that Cannabis a Key group.
Hi, Mr. Sheriff, Mayor.
Yes.
I think you raised, thank you, Kevin, for the comments that we have invited you to come down and speak on this matter today.